In section 4.4, we'll talk about complements and conditional probabilities again. So before we can get to complements, we need to talk about sample spaces. We've talked about sample space, and remember, when we talk about the word sample space, it means it's the set of all possible outcomes. So you want to list all the possibilities, all possible outcomes. Okay, what do we know about complements? Well, we know that complements are opposites. And so if we have an event E, its complement will be something like this, either E with a little bar on top, or you might see E with a little complement slash next to it. We need that two events are opposites if their probabilities, or complements, if their probabilities add up to 1. That also means, though, if you have one probability and you're trying to find its complement, you can just subtract it from 1. We did this before when we were talking about, let's say, the probability of it raining being 40%. Then the chances of it not raining would be 60%. And that's because they have to add up to 1 or 100% as a probability, because they are complements or opposites. Either it's raining or it's not raining. So let's take a look at a couple examples, and let's talk about their sample spaces and how to determine whether or not two events are truly opposites or complements of one another. So in this first example, we have a multiple choice test with 4 questions. Each has 5 choices for the answer. Only one is correct. You randomly guess the answer to each question. And then they talk about your different events. One is that you answer none of the 4 questions correct, and event B is that you answer at least 1 correct. So we're going to rewrite or write out a sample space here, but we're going to leave it pretty general, and that will be to our advantage. So let's start out with the sample space, which is the list of all possibilities. Well, the first thing that they actually mention is that you answer none of the 4 questions correctly. So let's list that out as our first option, is that you answer none of the 4 correct. What's another option? Again, we're going to try to leave this as broad as possible, is that you only get 1 of the questions correct. Could be the first question, could be the last one, it could be one of the ones in the middle, it doesn't matter. Another option is that you answer 2 out of 4 correct. Well, another option is that you could get 3 out of 4 correct. And the last option, option number 5, is that you actually get all 4 of them, actually all of them correct. So let's take a look at seeing which event is which. Well, our first event, A, is that you answer none of them correctly. That is just number 1 in your sample space, that you answer none of them correctly. So that's all A is. The question is what's included in B. Well, if you look at B is that you answer at least 1 correct. And that is super important. At least 1 could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 3. At least 1 means 1 or more. So that would include getting exactly 1 right, or more than that, which would also include getting 2 right, 3 right, and it could include also getting all of them right. So all of these together include all your options for event B. Now the question is, are these 2 complements? And here's where, if you write out your sample space and you look at it this way, you can answer really quickly. The answer is yes, they are complements. The question is why? Yes, they're complements because together we get all of the options in the sample space. Either you're in A, in this first one, or you're in B. There's no options that are not cover. So for any events to be opposites or complements, they together have to cover all your possibilities without having any overlapping parts. So the idea is if you're not in A, you're in B. If you're not in B, then you must be in A. And that's your only option. Either you're in A or you're in B. You're not in both, and you're not left out of any groups. So because A and B both cover all the sample space without overlapping, yes, they are complements or opposites. Because if you're not in A, you're in B. And if you're not in B, you're in A. So yes, they are complements. So they are complements. Let's try another one. We have a multiple choice with 4 questions again. Let's take a look at this one. So again, whenever you're worried about whether or not something is a complement of one another, you're going to always start by listing out the sample space, all the possibilities. So this is the same example we were just looking at, so it's going to have the same sample space. You could have gotten all 4 questions correct. You could have gotten only 1 correct. You could get 2 correct. 3 out of 4 correct. Or you could get all 4 of them correct. So let's take a look. In event A, we have the same event A that we had in the last one, which is that you answer none of them correctly, which is just number 1 from the sample space. That's our event A there. If we look at event B, it's a little bit different this time. You answer all 4 questions correct. Getting all 4 of them correct is only the last option. That's all that's included in event B this time. So, are these 2 events complements? The answer is going to be no this time. The question is, why is it no this time? And it's because of all of these in the middle that are not included in A or B. When things are complements, you have to be in one group or the other, not both. There can't be any overlap, but there also can't be anything left out. And we've got all of these options here in the middle that aren't in either one of the 2 groups. You're not in A and you're not in B. So these are your issues. This is why they are not complements. There's a bunch of options that aren't covered in either A or B. So, no, they are not complements. And the reason why they're not complements is that there's plenty of stuff that is not in A and not in B. So it's not in A or in B. And that's the issue.